Oh, here we go. Okay.
Come on, you know what to look for.
We are live.
It's not your first
Coming to you
rodeo.
live. February 13th, 2020. Work session and public hearing of the Penfield Planning Board. Happy New Year, everybody. A month late.
It's your grand
Laura,
entrance.
would you please call the roll?
Sure. Allyn, Hetzke,
Here.
Blvd,
Here.
Bob Knauer,
Here.
Gary Tyler, Zach Nersinger,
Here.
Sangster,
Here.
O'Connor,
Here.
Lori Gray.
Switched it up with the formal names.
I know.
New year, new things.
All right. Okay, we have meeting minutes from the January 9th meeting. Hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to review them. I viewed the video of the meeting, so I should be all set.
I'll make the motion for approval.
I'll second. All right, moved and seconded.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Knauer,
Aye.
Tyler.
Aye.
And I will say, nice job, Bill. Thank you for taking care of that. Okay, Zach, do you want to go through the tabled applications that we have and any other action items and
Sure thing.
so on?
Let's do it. We have 3 tabled applications this evening. The first application is for 80 Sovran Drive, Nolan's Rentals. They were here before the board with a public hearing for an expansion. That includes a new storage building at the rear half of their property. At the conclusion of the meeting, the board requested the applicant take a look at the plan, go look at how they could preserve some of the tree line within the 100-foot buffer, which exists from the southern edge of the building to the southern property lines. A little bit of history. This 100-foot is actually required because of the change of zoning districts between GB and residential. When the property was rezoned, the town board had a condition that this be a 200-foot buffer between the residential properties to the east and to the 200 feet in on the project site. They have complied with that on this plan. There are no physical improvements proposed in there. Doug, if you could go to the grading plan. Thank you. I'm sorry, lighting. Landscape. I'm all over the place. There we go, that one. What they were able to do in response to your tabling resolution was they were able to preserve approximately 50 feet of tree area along that border, which is what the board requested, along with maintaining the height of the berm. If you could go with a grading plan. So you can see we maintained a top elevation on the berm of 458. This would be landscaped, which is shown on the landscape plan, but we do show, again, this is just under 50 feet of preserved wooded area that exists today. Staff went out and took a look at it with your landscape consultant. He felt it was appropriate. However, one thing he asked for was to defer some of his final comments until the work area has been cleared, so we could go back and take a look at it one last time to make sure the berm as proposed and landscaping will be adequate. So that is in your records. That was provided leading up to the meeting. They updated the lighting plan. Actually, where are you?
Lighting plan.
Okay, on the lighting plan, I know this is a new drawing that we see here with LED fixtures. I didn't know if AJ, if you had a chance to take a look at this leading up to the meeting.
I have.
Okay.
I have.
Any comments?
The W2 fixture I'd like to take a little bit closer look at, but it's something that I think we could take care of pre-Mylar.
Okay. As we stated in one of the questions from the public was what are they going to see for lighting here? It was basically we have lights on the exterior over the man doors as exit doors, which is required by code. They are not high in the building. They are right at the
And
top.
they're shooting down, not out.
Yep. Shine down. They
The
have
W1s are.
correct. Yep. And those have cutoffs designed into them, or at least they're shine down.
Yep.
Okay. Can you go to the landscape plan, Doug? There it is. And I just wanted to rewind back to the landscape plan for the board where they have the new plantings proposed on top of the berm. Significant amount of plantings staggered in a way to create a buffer on top of that, as well as a few more on the back half of the larger berm. There is one drainage item that the town engineer is still looking into, but he has told us that that is a technical matter that he's comfortable taking care of in the pre-Mylar phase of the project. That is all I have.
Okay. You guys have any other issues with this?
Nope. So it looks like everything was addressed.
Okay.
So we did provide an EAF for the board's consideration, and if you want to make any motions on that, we can at this time.
I'll move to approve the EAF.
I'll second it.
Bastian, tidings.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
And can we get an approval?
I guess to issue approval resolution with the conditions mentioned here.
Yes, I would. I mean, I think we're ready for that unless,
No, I think they are.
Okay. So we can have a motion to approve the project with the conditions discussed here tonight, and we'll get that onto the applicant.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second
Hetzke,
aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings.
it. Aye.
All right.
Okay,
Item number 2.
Thank you, gentlemen. Stay warm.
thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Item number 2, 1549 Empire Boulevard, Children's Dyslexia Center of Rochester. They're before the board for a parking expansion. We did get a revised set of plans here. Just as a precursor to this, there is no action required right now because these plans are going to go off to the DOT, this New York State DOT, for their review based on this layout. Whoop, hang on. Let's just stick with the one you have. Based on this layout that we're seeing here, they pulled 2 curb cuts from the front on the U-shaped entrance that was out there. So we just received this. We're getting our comments together, and this is going off to the DOT, and then we're sending the drainage back to the county planning office because they had some comments about the drainage in the back of the property. So we're expecting more updates on this before your February work session meeting.
Okay.
So if there aren't any questions from the board, there's no action then required by you, and we can move on to the next one.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, let's keep
All right.
moving.
Third and final, tabled applications for 1751 Baird Road, a 4-lot subdivision at the corner of Legacy Circle and Baird Road.
Yep.
What about Carrot Homes?
That one.
This is it.
His name's
I'm
not
sorry.
on it, but it's McGrail's project.
All right, I'm sorry.
There you are, you're back. Can we just go to the plan, Doug? Perfect. So we have basically some, we have had a draft approval prepared for this in previous meetings, but we were still waiting for drainage designs to come back from the applicant. What we see on this latest plan is we have a catch basin installed between lots 3 and 4, and it was extended further between lots 2 and 3. This is a request of the town engineer that has been added to the plan. It allows for connections for the sump pumps of those homes. They're showing that on the plans now. We have a couple technical comments left over to issue to them regarding just the final grading of lot 3, as well as the connection of the storm sewers in the back. Those are items, again, the town engineer is comfortable handling. It's pre-Mylar items. And also they did perform deep hole tests out there. That was something that came up early on in this project with following the public hearing. That data's on the plan, and we have starting to review that. Right now, again, that's something we can work out as a pre-Mylar item. Are there any questions from the board on this project at this time?
I notice on the drawing, there's no walkout basements.
Correct.
Okay.
They don't have the depth to achieve that. And lot 4 would be serviced by a sprinkler system in the home due to its distance from the nearest hydrant. The other homes can be serviced by a hydrant on Legacy Circle. This will require a larger service to have a sprinkler system in it. It's also lots 3 and 4. They are now served by private driveways. There is no common driveway for either of them off Legacy Circle. And as we discussed early on, this is kind of a landscaped area in the right-of-way that has been maintained by the homeowners of Legacy Circle. The applicant has expressed on record that they will be restoring this to its conditions as close as they can following the construction and installation of utilities and roads to get to those houses.
Okay.
So, just like our other one, we have an EAF and an approval resolution for
Okay.
you.
Move to approve the EAF.
I'll second.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings,
Aye.
Thank you. And the approval resolution?
Make a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll second.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings,
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Okay.
That concludes the table applications. We have two more for the work session. One is an action item that came up. It's for the previous project we looked at for SimuTech at Panorama Park. This is the second lot that was approved by the board. Get to my notes quickly for you. We received the plans last week, and it includes an updated site, utility, and grading plan. Due to the height of the retaining wall and a 2-on-1 slope at the rear, the building was shifted closer to the road, and that also required the parking to be modified. And Doug, just while we're doing this, could you pull up the plan the board saw previously just to compare it? The result of this, when we get back to it, is actually less disturbance along the steeper hillsides. It spreads out the parking, it relocates the stormwater management area to the alternative area they had already selected. So it's kind of a blend of the two things that we've seen before. So on the left, Doug is showing the proposed plan, and on the right is what was previously approved by the board. You can see how everything has shifted further to the front with the same total number of parking, just in a different configuration that again does not encroach into the hillside as much. Whoop, we lost it. And
All right. Anybody have any issues with this? No.
Thanks for that.
Can you go back to the? There we go. And I just wanted to highlight, yeah, the proposed. And again, I just want to highlight that this is where their stormwater management facility would be installed, under an easement on the adjacent parcel within their
Right.
development.
Okay.
Any questions, concerns?
I'll make the motion, unless it's somebody else's, I don't know who's
Nope.
on this. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay. And
Tidings and Bastian.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
all right, thank you very much. We'll get a letter off to them to document the site plan modification approval. Next up is a new business item. And it's our final item of the work session. We're just seeing it's a lot line shift between two properties at
Canterbury.
Canterbury. Lost it in my notes. 24 and 26 Canterbury Trail. What we're seeing here is, it'll be quick.
Sorry, we're all right.
Yeah, we have two lots here. The existing property line is here in the dashed, and they're proposing a solid line here. Basically, it's the amount of area exchanged is the same on both ends. Basically, both lots would comply with code still. They're just looking to kind of formalize the way they've been maintaining the properties for the past years since the homes were built. Staff has no concerns about this resub.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll second.
Bastian, Canower.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings,
Aye.
All right.
Okay.
Have anything else?
No, we have one public hearing this evening for a sketch plan at 1918 Jackson Road. Other than that, we have no other items for this work session at this time.
All right. With that, we will recess and reconvene at 7 o'clock up on the dais. And welcome to the February 13th, 2020 meeting of the Penfield Planning Board. We'll begin the meeting with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you all for coming. We have a nice-sized crowd here tonight. We have one item on our agenda. It is a sketch plan, and for those of you who do not know what a sketch plan is, in Penfield we have a process where if a developer or an applicant has a concept for a project, they can come in with what we call a sketch plan. It's more of an informal review. As such, a lot of the engineering work has not been done. A lot of the final studies have not been done because the reason for the sketch plan is to get an idea and get some feedback on whether or not it's a good project, feedback on maybe some changes that could be made and that sort of thing. So please don't expect very, very detailed drawings and things of that nature. The way our process works, the way we run the meetings, is the applicant will present their project up on the podium to the board. We will then ask questions from the board. Once we're done with that, we open it up to the audience, and there are slips of paper like this on that table. You don't necessarily have to fill one out, but it helps a lot. I'll go through, and hopefully I won't butcher your name. Please forgive me if I do. And when I call your name, please come up to the podium, introduce yourself, state your name and address for the record, and then address your comments to the board and not to the applicant. Okay? Also, housekeeping issues, bathrooms are right outside, and please silence all your cell phones and pagers and whatnot. With that, Zach, please read our one and only sketch plan application for the evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Application number 1, BME Associates, 10 Liftbridge Lane East, Fairport, New York, 14450. On behalf of Insight Land Development, request an informal discussion before the board with plans for a 20-lot residential subdivision under Town Law 278 with associated site improvements on a 13.26-acre lot located at 1918 Jackson Road. The property is now or formerly owned by Benoit and Sylvia Dumais and zoned single-family residential R120. Application number 20P-0002, SBL number 124.16-1-39.3. All yours.
Well, good evening, board. My name is Eric Olivas. I'm here representing Insight Development. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I thought I would begin just by giving a little bit of history of how this site came to us. The current owners, Ben and Sylvia, actually contacted us. They had two objectives in mind when they were looking for developers to take a peek at their project. Number one is they wanted to be able to sell this property to kind of help care for their upcoming health needs so that they could stay in their home there at 1918 Jackson Road. Their second objective, of course, was to find the right developer that would help them to develop a plan that fell within the current zoning of the area, and also one that's sensitive to the appearance of, or the end result of the project as well. So that's how we kind of arrived at the concept that we're proposing to you tonight. It is a 20-lot subdivision. It does fall within the zoning density requirements for the area. The particular plan that we are presenting is a cluster development that has those 20 building lots, and based on a few town staff recommendations, a little bit of history, we were asked to consider incorporating the stormwater management that we originally proposed on the conventional plan into the stormwater facility that's owned by the town and the adjacent property. We would also agree to update that stormwater facility to current standards as well. So that was comments from the town that we're certainly agreeable to do. Some other comments that we received across the street from Jackson Road, we heard that there were a few stormwater issues, so we are certainly in agreement to extend the stormwater that's part of this development up to Jackson Road so that those could be remedied in the future by crossing Jackson Road. As far as details of the site as well, we actually toured Ben and Sylvia through some other developments that we have in Penfield, just to kind of show them that we are sensitive to clearing. We try to maintain as much buffer as we can within the limits that the design allows around the perimeter of the property. We know the history of the property as well, being a tree farm at one time. So we're even looking into options of relocating some of the trees that are on site that will have to come down due to the development, and relocating those to areas that are going to be more suitable according to the plan that we have. Yeah, and then I guess the biggest thing is just maintaining that buffer around the edge of the property, because it's going to benefit all the neighbors as well. So with that in mind, I'll open it up to any questions that the board has. Fred Shelley is here from BME as well to answer any technical questions. Any questions that you have at all?
Okay, thanks, Eric. Quick question that I had, could you go a little bit more into detail about the stormwater facility and talk about that a little bit? Because that's, I think, one of the justifications for the 278.
Yeah, I'll let Fred answer that.
Okay.
Thank you, members of the board. Again, yes, Fred Shelley from BME Associates. So through our discussions with the town staff, we did look at an existing stormwater facility. Oh, and just so the board knows, this rendering right here is the proposed cluster development. We have one of our...
Why don't you turn it a little bit so that the audience can see it a little better. Great, thanks.
This exhibit here provides a rough layout of our storm and sanitary sewers, and then also the off-site stormwater area. And then here we have presented the basic concept plan under conventional zoning. So we got kind of a mix of everything in there. So to address the board's question on the stormwater management areas, this area directly to the east of the site, there are some existing dry ponds. Dry ponds don't technically provide very much water quality volume. So when we were discussing this with the town, there's an opportunity not only to provide some bioretention areas in on the site to treat our on-site area, but also these could be incorporated to treat any other stormwater that flows to this area. And then also there would be improvements where we would excavate wet ponds so that we could provide a wet storage of water quality volume. So it would basically enhance the runoff from the local drainage area before it discharges downstream.
Okay. Thank you. Could you also talk a little bit about the differences between the conventional plan and the cluster plan, and possibly give your best explanation as to what that means?
Absolutely. So the conventional zoning, or the current zoning in the area, it requires a 20,000 square foot minimum lot size, a 50-foot front setback, 10-foot side setbacks, 30-foot rear setbacks, and a minimum lot width of 100 feet. What we've proposed here is a minimum lot area of 12,000 square feet, 40-foot front setback, 8-foot side setback, 20-foot rear setback, and then a minimum lot width of 70. Now, the plans that we've provided under the clustering, not all the lots are going to be 70 feet wide, and we're not looking to put all of the buildings 20 feet from the rear lot line. What we've done with this proposal is it provides us flexibility where we're coming on around the radius of around the outside of the curve of the proposed roadway. The front setbacks, we reduce that so that it reduces the length of the driveway, reduces the impervious pavements in the area that would be installed based under conventional zoning. When we pull those buildings closer to the road, we can also maximize our rear buffers as well. So in doing that, we can still provide basically the same amount of rear yard area, but also enhancing the exterior buffer zones to the adjoining neighbors with a vegetated buffer as well. Side setbacks, it's kind of the same thing. When we end up coming around the curve, especially, that's where we end up with kind of a pie-shaped lot. Those lots generally around the curve, we're holding about an 80-foot lot width at the front of the building for the proposed home. So that basically gives a little bit more flexibility in that regard.
Okay. Some of the things that you may have, so for those of you who aren't familiar with what they're proposing, the words cluster development versus a conventional development, there's a law, Town Law 278 in New York State, that allows developers to propose developments with, say, the same number of lots that would be on a conventional plan, but in a different configuration, as long as they're providing some community benefits. So those benefits could be more open space. So instead of having, say, 20 half-acre parcels, you have 20 parcels that some of them may be smaller than a half-acre, but in exchange, you have better buffering, you have more open space, you have up to standards stormwater retention facilities that they're proposing for the adjacent parcel. So it's a common confusion with people that when they hear cluster, they think, oh, they're going to put a ton more homes in than they normally would be able to, and that's not the case. They're just putting them in a different configuration. Does that make sense? So just wanted to explain that. Anybody else have questions?
Yeah, I had a
Okay.
question. Fred, the wetland area that's in the north part of the property, during development, and I guess in your design of the project, what considerations did you take into account, and what actions are being taken to protect that wetland?
Sure. So with our original submission that we sent for the cluster, we had proposed bypassing and not disturbing the wetland that's in that area there. Currently, that wetland receives basically general stormwater from the area, and that's basically how it's fed. There is potential that it could be a non-jurisdictional wetland, and in that case, depending on how our meetings go tonight and subsequent meetings with the town, we'll review, obviously do a wetland delineation and then submit for a jurisdictional determination. If it's an isolated wetland, then there's potential that it's not protected, and then it may be modified without permit. However, the current proposal that we have in front of the board tonight shows a driveway that actually does go through a portion of that wetland. That portion of the wetland, we would keep it minimized to the greatest extent possible. And basically, the Army Corps of Engineers has a cutoff of about 1/10 of an acre of disturbance where no mitigation is required. And that's what we would shoot for, is to minimize our disturbance in that area and reduce any permitting requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, Fred, how was I see you guys had a meeting on February 10th.
Yes.
How was that showing? I mean,
Pardon me?
how was the attendance?
Oh, I'm sorry, a neighborhood meeting?
Yes.
Eric did?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was one that Rudy was, had
So at least
attended.
you reached
but,
out to the
yeah.
neighbors, and hopefully that was productive. You know, you've reached out to the engineering as well as the neighbors. Hopefully some of those issues were addressed at that meeting. Okay, well, you'll have a chance to ask questions later,
Okay.
too. Okay, are you going to have sidewalks eventually, you think? Sidewalks, lighting?
Yeah, the applicant would request, so the town law currently requires sidewalks on each side of the roadway. The applicant would propose to the town board with support from the planning board to install one sidewalk on one side is the direction that he would go on that. But then, there is a possibility of a waiver of the sidewalk as well that would be considered just because of the size of this development here and limited connectivity to other sidewalks in the area. So sidewalks, basically, we would look to try to waive that and then go through the proper channels with the town as far as the sidewalk waiver. Lighting, Eric, I think we're probably just looking for on-home lighting in the area.
Thanks, Fred.
Yep.
I have one question. I know it's early in the process, but what kind of homes do you envision you're going to build there?
I guess the market will kind of drive that. Our intent would be, single-family colonial homes. Is there a possibility of a few ranches in the development? I think for sure. The market's really going to kind of drive that.
Okay, thanks.
Idea of rough range,
Size-wise,
size, price, that
right
sort of-
now, everything that, the research that we've done, 2,500 square feet, somewhere in that range.
Any variances required?
No.
Okay. Okay, you're all set? You guys all set?
Yeah.
Okay,
AJ, I have one.
yes,
I have one
go
question.
ahead, Zach.
Fred, this one's just more directed to you. It's a comment from staff that we want to just get on record. Obviously, we've discussed, we have a proposal here to consolidate the stormwater management pond onto the town land immediately to the east there. Can your plan provide adequate space in the cluster plan for the pond if it's not able to be located on the town land, if the town board were to not agree to that condition? I know the conventional plan does show it on there.
Yes.
Under an area in the southeast corner. Does that same corner allow for a similar design on the cluster plan?
There is area there. It would include removal of more buffer areas out there. Buffer vegetation in that area. Ideally, ideally it would be to combine with the town board. Obviously, it's up to the town board's decision on that. But, in speaking with the stormwater, if we do proceed as it is on the conventional plan, that creates another stormwater management facility, which would be proposed to be dedicated to the town and managed and maintained by the town as well. So basically with the clustering application, one of the benefits that could be perceived by the town is we're going to consolidate these stormwater areas, so we don't have two individuals. We have one centrally located regional system.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right, we'd like to open it up to the audience right now. And first person I have is Ben Candeloro.
Good evening. A similar application was made in the late 70s.
Sorry, Ben, before you carry on, just a reminder, everyone, name and address when you approach the mic, please, for the record.
Ben Candelaro, 1896 Jackson Road.
Thank you.
A similar application was made in the late 70s to develop the same area. Can anyone tell me why it was turned down, why it wasn't allowed to be developed, and what would be the difference now as opposed to then?
I'll speak on that since I'm the town staff representative. I don't have history of that with me right now.
Okay.
But we can look into that. That's
Okay, and how would we find out what it,
I would suggest that you would just contact the planning department office or myself.
Okay.
All our information's on the website, and we can have that conversation once I'm able to dig that up through our history.
Okay. The current plan includes a retention pond, is that correct? For water management, is that what it's going to be?
The current plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, but includes utilizing the adjacent current town stormwater management facility to the east, which is not up to current New York State standards.
Right. It's a retention pond, though? Is that what it is?
I believe it's a detention facility right now, so that means that water does not stay in there all the time.
Okay, where does it go to?
There's a storm sewer system that the dry pond that was referenced earlier, that
Right.
drains into the storm sewers in that neighborhood to the east.
Okay, so what about, so it's going to be modified to hold all the water that's going to come off of there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Has there been an environmental study to see what the effects of all this water and all this building would do?
We do not have an engineer's report yet.
Okay.
This is a sketch plan, so as the
Okay.
chairman said, those details would be forthcoming if this project moved forward.
Okay. And traffic study, is there going to be a traffic study done?
If it justifies it, then yes.
Okay, so as of now, it's not going to have, when is it going to be done?
Speaking from history, no.
Okay, all right.
This is a sketch plan, like
Right,
I
I
said at the
understand.
beginning.
Right.
It's, all these things that you're asking about.
Right, I understand, but
Could very
there's-
well
yeah.
happen, but
Right,
when they happen,
Yeah,
they
the-
may decide to walk away.
Right,
And then they'll never happen.
Yeah, the
They
reason
might
yeah.
take 6 months, they might take 6 weeks, they might take
Right.
6 years. I can't answer that
I
question.
understand, yeah, I understand. The reason I'm asking is because there's already a serious water issue in that area. A lot of the basements and foundations have been damaged from the current water now. And the idea of adding all these homes there, not only the runoff from the homes, but construction water runoff. I've been a mason for 30 years, and I know that digging a basement, okay, an even trench foundation, water will accumulate in there. It will rain, okay? And we've pumped out 2 feet of water out of basements. We've had trench footers filled with water. So there's a serious issue with water runoff and damage to the property. If you walk around the property, you'll see a lot of the homes, the property sits up about 3 feet higher. So that's why I was asking all these questions,
Okay.
My final question is about the taxes. These homes are, what are they valued at? They're supposed to be 2,500 square feet, correct, roughly?
That's according
And
to
how
that.
will it affect our taxes? I mean, because right now, the average home in that area is about $150,000. So I'm wondering how much it would increase our taxes.
That's a question you have to directly ask the town assessor.
Okay.
The board and myself as staff are not allowed to speak to that. That is
Okay.
specifically for the town assessor.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, next person, Maren Eggert. And again, please don't crucify me if I butcher your name.
My name is Maren Eggert. I live at 74 Thorntree Circle. That home has been in my family for over 50 years. I inherited that home from my grandmother, my grandparents. They were one of the original owners on Thorntree Circle, and now I live there with my family. And one of the things that I've always loved about that house and living in that area is looking out the back window and having that open space and seeing all the wildlife. That's one of the reasons I love living there. And I'm wondering, with this new development, where's all this wildlife going to go? And what's going to happen to that?
Okay,
Okay? Thank you for your time.
thank you. Okay, Melissa Quinn.
Hi, I'm Melissa Quinn, and I live at 90 Foxbourne Road. And the reason that I'm here tonight is because in 1964, my parents moved into 27 Squire Circle, and my mother still lives there. And I drive from Whalen Road to Squire Circle, back and forth multiple times during the week to visit my mom, who is still in her house on Squire Circle. I have personal knowledge of that road, having grown up there in the 70s. It was always very narrow, and we were scared riding our bikes. And over the years, they built Jackson Extension, but they never widened, we call it Old Jackson Road. And it's just like, well, this is our little road, but people going to the country club, that's the cut through. And the Presbyterian Church, people are back and forth all the time on that road. And recently, with the health conscious safeness of the people in the Penfield area, and because there is a sidewalk system on Whalen Road and Jackson Extension, people who want to do the loop walk all the way around. That's a logical thing to do. There's dog walkers, there's multiple women and men who want to get exercise, and that's what we love about Penfield, is that the open space, but to be able to go out your front door and take a 30-minute walk, you get those steps in. So what we really notice on our stretch of Old Jackson Road, there is just not enough pavement for walkers plus 2 cars. You have to come to a stop, and you definitely have to go over the center yellow line to avoid walkers, because they are allowed to be on the pavement and the cars are on the pavement. So just using the road every day, everyone knows that there does not seem to be enough pavement. Well, in addition to my observations, I'm also a registered professional engineer, civil engineering, and my specialty is traffic and road design. So as I drive it, I just know this is not correct. But it's always just been Old Jackson Road. People that live there and people drive back and forth, and they have respect for the walkers, for the other cars. We wave at each other, and we know the walkers with their dogs. So what's concerning is that it's a town road, so the town has the responsibility for safety on that road. And adding more traffic by specifically allowing a development means that the town will be responsible for decreasing the safety on that road. So what I would recommend, as far as due diligence, the town should have a traffic study done. And specifically for road engineering, it's based on the speed limit, and the speed limit for that stretch is 35. And when people go 35 on that stretch and you come around the curve, you feel like you're going too fast because the road is so narrow. And if you come upon someone who is walking and you're going 35 miles an hour, it is concerning. So as far as a traffic study, they need to determine whether, based on the 35 mile an hour posted speed limit, plus the width of the road, whether that meets the federal standards and even local standards. If you go on other roads in the town of Penfield, Jackson is like a forgotten orphan that has never been widened. There has not been any sidewalks installed, and it's a concern. If I had children that was living in that neighborhood, I would say, do not ride your bike on Jackson Road. It's scary. And so just my basic summary is recommending to make sure that by purposely allowing additional traffic, promoting additional traffic by approval of a subdivision of this type on the road, that the town needs to take responsibility that this section of road is not safe now, and by adding the additional cars, that those houses would generate, that it would be decreasing the safety on the roadway. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jen Decker.
Hi, I'm Jen Decker, 75 Thorntree Circle. This is my son.
Grayson.
Say your last name.
Decker.
And I'll let him read his
Thanks for
question.
coming.
I'll let him read his question first. It actually wonderfully ties into that lovely lady's statement as well. Go ahead, Beth.
So it's not safe to walk down the street already or ride your bike, and then with the cars from the new houses that they're gonna build, it's gonna be even more not safe. And then there are no sidewalks, and some people are not willing to pay for sidewalks.
He wrote this himself. Then go ahead.
And then how can you fix that?
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
Can I ask my questions? And then I just have a few questions.
Okay.
So I know you covered a lot of the traffic study questions already, and you don't have answers. But since nothing is planned right now, how can we make sure that if this does move forward, what's like the appropriate like request process?
Contact the planning department.
Okay.
Do you want to continue since you work in the planning department?
I'd love to. Your request is to,
If this project does move forward,
Yes.
and for some reason, if, I don't know who decides that they don't need to do a traffic study, what do we, like we as in residents, what do we need to do? Who do we need to speak to?
oh, okay, I follow you. First part of that is the board can request a traffic study as part of this meeting, basically.
Okay.
The result of this meeting is that the board issues a letter to the applicant stating its concerns, both from the public that's been expressed and both of the board. If it's deemed that a traffic study is not required for this, then I would recommend that, there's multiple things you can do here. We do have a transportation committee that meets monthly. That goes through the engineering department. We all work in the same office upstairs. But you can contact planning and engineering, any of us, to speak with our transportation committee to recommend that the town take a look at that area for improvements to the road, as you brought up about the existing conditions of the road. And then that kind of has a trickle-down effect to the engineering department, to the town board, to the DPW, so on and so forth. So there are avenues, if it's determined that this project doesn't meet the warrants for a traffic study, that is something that the board can again request of the applicant to examine that, or require one just straightforward and say, we'd like to see a generic traffic study of the area based on this project. But,
Thank you, that was very informative, thank you. And then the only other, related to that question, I have two more questions after that, is that we heard from a couple other residents, I don't think they're here, who live near other new developments, that a traffic study was done, but it conveniently was done like on a weekday or it wasn't done during what one would assume would be a high traffic time. As other people have said, there's a daycare, I think that has about maybe like 100 kids that go there. The town uses, it's a road, of course they can use it, but the town tends to use that as like a cut through. I'm not sure why, like all their town trucks go down that way. So I also just want to have on record that I think everyone here would just like to make sure that if a traffic study is done, that it's done like during a normal day of business, like when school is in session, daycare's in session, during normal commuting hours, not overnight, not like on a Sunday, that whole thing.
Speaking from history, this board has been very diligent about that with our recent applications in the past few years.
Oh, good. Thank
about saying when was this traffic study performed as part of an application.
Okay.
So those are valid points, and I just want to let you know that that's part of our job as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Second question. I apologize. I have this written down. I know the 2020 comprehensive plan is coming out like in the next month or so. Ish. I called this morning and that's what they said.
Strong-ish.
I thought it was supposed to be done sooner than that, but.
So did I.
Okay. We're on the same page then. So, and I know that lays sort of like the groundwork for the next 10 years, like the view of the whole community. I'm so sorry. In regards to everything. So because that document's not out, part one, which I'm sure won't happen, is I don't know, can this project proposal be tabled until the 2020 comprehensive plan comes out? If not, how does this project align with the town's 2010 comprehensive plan? Specifically, I read through it, there was reference to existing traffic problems, bicycle access, sidewalks, open space preservation, and wetlands management. I assume the 2020 plan is probably going to emphasize that even more as we as a country move towards, having roads for everyone, bicyclists, walkers, et cetera. So that would be my second request, if there's any thoughts that anyone has regarding that.
Okay.
Let me attempt to answer one of them.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So rewinding to The first part, well, I know, your first part was about the 2020 plan, the 2010 plan?
Well, I know the 2020 plan's not out
Yeah,
yet.
so we're
If it
still-
could be
we're-
tabled until that comes out, and if not...
That's the first part,
Okay, yeah.
yes. No, this project, the status of the current comp plan doesn't impact a project of this nature.
Okay.
It's within the zoning district, they're not asking for a rezoning or anything. If they were asking for a rezoning for higher density,
Okay.
then we would say, yes, this requires a review of the comprehensive plan. Is this going to be a recommended area for a rezoning?
And that's because it's already zoned R20 or what?
R120,
Okay,
correct. So
okay.
they are working within the confines
Okay.
of the existing zoning, therefore it is not held up due to the current comp plan that's in its draft form.
Okay.
I'm also working on that, so
Okay.
I understand. As part of the 2010 plan, open space plans, this property wasn't identified was not identified on the open space plan inventory list that was done in 2006.
It's on there.
I did not see it on our map.
It was on there listed as, I can tell you what it
Is
said.
it lower recommended, maybe? Lower
Yes,
priority?
I believe so. So it was, it's on there from March 2006. A lot of it, I won't go over it, but it says, actually, let me read this because it's kind of important. The property is zoned R120 and has available infrastructure, including sanitary sewers, water, and other utilities. It is adjacent to about 8 acres of town-owned property east of 1918 Jackson Road. The town-owned land is an open space set aside associated with the Village Green subdivision, with frontage on Autumn Oak and off Jackson. While this property is situated adjacent to existing open space and is surrounded by development, its close proximity to Harris Whalen Park reduces the value for added parkland, yada, yada, yada. If the property is developed at some time in the future, some additional land area in the eastern portion of the property should be added to the existing parkland open space through clustering of development. So I know it was mentioned in there.
Apologize for not doing my homework
No,
before
that's
this
fine.
meeting.
I did it for you.
I appreciate
We're a team.
that.
We're all in it together.
I appreciate that.
And I didn't mean to call you out. I just have to look it up.
No, that's
That's
totally
just what I
fine.
do.
That happens to me every day on the phone, emails, quite used to it. Can't use the line, I'm the new guy anymore. So, yes, while it was on that plan,
Yeah, it wasn't a
does this
priority.
meet the intentions of the 2010 comprehensive plan? I would agree that it does. Again, it is not going outside the confines of the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
Other than being mentioned on that list, there haven't been significant changes in the area. Again, those utilities are available, and as part of the 2020 plan, and actually what was echoed in the 10 plan too, a lot of development in Penfield this is what we're going to see in the future. They're called infill developments. A lot of the major portions of town obviously have been built. That's where sanitary sewers exist. That's what drives development. Having sanitary sewers in the area, having an undeveloped piece of land, having owners of a property approach a developer of their choice to say, is it possible to develop this? How can we do it in a way that we as the current owners feel comfortable for our neighbors, but also complies with the town land, the town code? All of those things kind of factor into this. So yes, I would say that it does meet the intentions of the 2010 plan, and in the 20 plan, we're going to echo that a lot of the development we're going to see moving forward in Penfield, because sanitary sewers are limited, will be projects like this, that developers are seeing that this is...
Meaning like tucked into existing sort of structures?
Yeah, infill developments,
Okay.
yep. Something that one thought was part of someone else's property, but just hasn't been touched over time.
And then I'll end my last sort of question relating to that, is the comprehensive plan, does it cover sidewalks?
Yes.
It does, okay.
Yes, we put forth recommendations to keep encouraging and providing budgets to make sidewalk connections where there are gaps.
And that's and not mean to interrupt, that was my other question. I know they mentioned possibly not even doing sidewalks in their subdivision or doing it on just one side. I know like if you look at like a lot of the Ryan developments, there'll be like a sidewalk to nowhere. Like here's a sidewalk for, a quarter of a mile and then...
So as just the history of that,
Yes,
quickly,
thank you.
so we can have other people
Yes, I'm
speak
sorry,
too.
I'm so
No,
sorry.
it's okay, we're having a good conversation, hopefully people are learning from it. I certainly did. Sidewalk connections are important to us. We have to work within the budgets that we're given from the town. There is a kind of an ongoing list of areas that we've identified that we want to address. We also have petitions that we get from neighborhoods about installing lengths of sidewalks in their neighborhoods. The reason why we see gaps a lot is because change over time, as some subdivisions have been built, waivers have been granted from the town to allow that money from those waivers. Money is collected from the waivers to go into other areas of need as well.
Right.
So the builder still pays?
The builder
Okay.
pays a fee.
Okay.
And that fee goes into the sidewalk fund.
Okay.
And then it's appropriated based on the list of priorities that the town has put together for, okay, we want
So it's
sidewalks
not
here,
just
here,
going
here,
in the
here.
builder's pocket? It's-
No.
Okay.
No,
Thank you for that.
no.
Thank you.
We have that's a part of our sidewalk policy.
Okay. And this is the last question, and it's an easy one, and then I'll stop. I'm so sorry, everyone. The last question, and I mean no offense whatsoever, so please no one take offense to this, but does anyone on the board have any business or personal connections to BME Associates, Crosstown Construction Custom Homes, Rudy Neufeld, Insight Land Development, or any of his many DBAs? Does anyone have like any business connections to them or anything? Just curiosity.
No.
Don't look at me, I'm not a board member, I'm just town staff.
Oh, you're on the planning board, and you're, okay.
I'm staff, there's a line here. The answer, I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf of
Yeah.
them, but my answer would be no based on knowing them.
Typically, when there is a conflict like that, if there's a ethics law,
Okay.
I think it's a law,
Yeah.
that if we have some sort of interest in development or work with a developer or somebody, an applicant, we recuse ourselves. And that happens on a fairly regular basis because we
Okay,
have.
so that would happen in this instance
Yes.
if any, okay.
Yep.
That would have happened before all this started.
Oh, okay.
Right, you would have seen somebody get up and not be
Okay.
up.
All right, thank you very much, sorry.
Sure.
Ready, go ahead.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you for your comments. All right, next person would be Wade Brayman.
All right, so my name is Wade Brayman. I live at 1064 Wayland Road. Just because there's a lot of people here, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. My family has been on this land since the 1950s. We have 400 feet of direct bordering property. I've had the pleasure of observing the beautiful wildlife on this project's property for many years. There is a herd of deer, 2 red fox dens, a gray fox den, and 2 nesting pairs of sharp-shinned hawks, along with many other animals that call this home. I do want to go on record and say I'm not totally against this project, but I am against the size of it. Instead of demolishing most of the land and wildlife, I suggest downsizing the project, building less homes, and allowing some of the land to remain in its natural existence. There is no reason that there needs to be 20 homes. There's no reason for that. So my final request, and it looks like that's in the works, would be that the developer, out of neighborly courtesy, maintains a hedgerow and/or berm between my property and theirs. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next up.
Go with the address.
Would it be Anna Barnes? A-N, and I can't read the third.
Got an address?
Is it Anna?
Ann.
Ann? Okay, sorry.
I'm Ann Barnes.
I should
live
have-
at 17 Pondview Lane, which is, runs off of Autumn Circle. I'm the first house right on the right-hand side as you're going up Pondview, and right next to the pond, and right on that corner, so I have that whole field behind me. I didn't plan on speaking tonight, but I do want the board to know that I do have a video, which I think you ought to look at, of what happens when we get a lot of rain or melt from the wintertime or an ice storm, that whole back field, the lower part of it, will fill up with water. And I have concern with the fact that you're talking about the drainage going down through there in those drain storms. I don't think it can hold it. It doesn't hold it now. The people down on Autumn Oak Circle are the ones who suffer the most because they are low and they get the water in their basements and have to be pumped out. But my video that I have was taken on May 23rd of 2014, when we had a day of constant rain, and I happened to just go out and take a video of the whole area so you can see the expanse.
Do you have that electronically, or?
I have it right here.
Great, if you could submit it to.
The only thing is,
For the record?
when I went to copy this, I accidentally copied my whole desktop, so I don't want to leave it in someone's hand.
Oh, come on.
I'm not very
All your credit card information on there too? Social security numbers?
Right. But if you, but it is, I don't know if you have the means to put it in and show it.
Yeah, I would suggest, if you can, again, contact, Zach is the man on the spot tonight, but in the planning department, you could take it up there, stand over his shoulder and make sure that he doesn't go shopping.
I can also
he can save it, and it could be part of the record.
I can also make another copy without my desktop on it. I did it in a hurry tonight. I all of a sudden realized that I had it and tried to copy it, but I'm not very good in the technical.
No, it'd be great to have it on the record.
Okay. But I am concerned with the amount of water that can come down through there. If you add water from drainage, it's just not going to hold.
Well, you could look at it a couple of ways. First off, that area is supposed to collect the water when it rains. Secondly, it is not up to current standards, and that is one of the things that they're proposing to do, is to bring it up to current standards. So, well, you can argue, all right, it's terrible now, but we don't want to make it better. So.
I mean worse. You don't want to make it worse.
Right, but.
I'm not quite sure I followed that.
Well, what the applicant is proposing is they will bring those facilities up to current standards so that it is better and it manages the water better than it does today.
One other thing that, when we moved in that house, I think we were the second one on the street, the town promised us that would be forever wild back in there. And the reason it was supposed to be forever wild is because they said they couldn't build in that area because of the clay and the bedrock. I know there was another house, a family on the other side of Old Jackson Road, who wanted to sell a vacant lot next to them, and I know she told me that they couldn't build on it because of the builder found that it was too rocky or
Something.
too. So
Okay.
if that hasn't been looked into, it needs to be.
Okay.
And I also will miss the wildlife.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Lynn Leinebach. Did I get it right? All right.
My name is Lynn Leinenbach. I live at 1891 Jackson Road. My husband and I have lived there for 43 years. We're right on the corner just before Squire and right across from Thorntree. So we have many years of watching the traffic flow. And before I get into that, I wanted to mention that we did have a neighborhood meeting, a lot of the neighbors on Jackson and Squire and Thorntree, on the 10th, because we we got our postcards only like 5 days before this meeting. So we wanted to organize and present our concerns tonight. So, and Tina is here, and she is the head of our committee, and I hope she gets a chance to speak. But in addition to the water problem, which we are on, we don't border where this is building, we're across the street on Jackson. And every time it rains, our front yard is like a lake. And I know that a couple houses down, when it rains, their lot is like a lake. And there's definitely some water problems. But the other thing I'd like to address is the traffic flow. From the stop sign on Hoyland, as you go down which was called Old Jackson Road that we live on, all the way to the top where it splits, you go left on Jackson Road to go north, you go right onto the extension. That's 0.7 miles. Within that, there's no sidewalks, as everyone has said. If you get off, if you're walking your dog or just riding your bike, and you have to get over, you are on somebody's yard. There is no extra space at all. And the traffic on that road increases. It's a cut through. A lot of the town trucks go up and down that road very, very fast. There's a large church there, the Presbyterian church. Within that church is a daycare with at least 100 children. And the parents fly up and down that road in the morning and when they pick up. And that daycare also means more school buses, not just for the residents on Jackson Road, but those children in the daycare center have buses that bus them from all over the place. And as I speak, as we all know, they are currently building, I believe it's a group home behind the church, which is going to be quite large, and that's going to be more traffic. My husband and I used to go on walks, and when we first moved there, and it was not concerning. Now, I won't ride my bike on Jackson Road. I won't go for a walk. It's too dangerous. They go fast. There's traffic constantly. And to think that a road or an entrance and an exit would be coming out right there by the old Christmas tree farm, it's very upsetting to me and my neighbors because it's dangerous. Okay?
Thank you. Okay, Tina Ebmeyer.
Good evening. My name is Tina Doughty Ebmeyer, and I live at 78 Thorn Tree Circle. I just want to start out by saying it feels like that every inch of green space in Penfield has to be built on. It's like it can't be left alone. I've lived in my home for 23 years now with my family on Thorn Tree, and I was really saddened to learn of the housing development that's going to go up behind our home. We've been very spoilt over the years. One of the things that sold the house for my husband and I when we first looked, when we were first married, is we walked through the front door, we look out the picture window, and there's just this scenic view of the woods, and it really is very, very pretty. It does not appeal to me. I don't see how it could to anybody else either, to turn that backyard look into the back of a $400,000 house, dollar house. Talking to Rudy Monday evening, I went to his little open house, and he was saying that the houses are going to be around 2,700 square foot, and they're going to sell for around the region of 400,000. And I just find that very puzzling to fit into a neighborhood where the average value per house is around 150. Feeling rather disgruntled over it. With word of mouth, I discovered that there was another number of other residents in our established neighborhood who felt very upset over the proposal as well. We really are concerned with how this is going to affect us and the strain that it's going to, put on the current outdated amenities around us. So as a small neighborhood group, we decided to get together and find out within our neighboring vicinity if others felt the same way as us. And we were actually surprised. We ended up collecting, and I have a hard copy here for the town board, we ended up collecting 713 petition signatures. Against the proposed build, along with, we generated a list of 35 questions. And no, I am not going to stand here and ask you all 35 questions right now. That wouldn't be fair on the rest of the residents that would like to get up here and ask questions. But we do ask that you take our hard copy, you take a review, you take a read, and you respond. We've all put our names against each question with our email addresses. And if you could respond, we would really appreciate that.
Okay.
Who do I hand that to yourself?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to end with a note on that we may be the little people in all of this, and we may not matter, and this may go ahead, but we really feel in our hearts that little people voices need to be heard. I will hope that you will consider questions, concerns, our petition signatures. I know it's probably not going to stop it, but we do have a general feeling of discontent over all this, and we really do feel that our matters need to be heard and addressed. So, thank you for your time.
That's part of what this evening's all about. Okay. Christina Emerine? Emerine? Okay, come on up.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for hearing us out.
Sure.
I wanted to also point out how large of a turnout we have. For typically at meetings it is not like this, and it's representative of the people of Penfield, and I'm happy to see neighbors unite, even though if it's kind of a stinky cause.
Christina, could you state your address, please?
Yes, Christina Emerine, 79 Thorn Tree Circle. Some of my things are a little redundant, but I think important to restate. The existing road on Jackson is in terrible shape. There's no shoulder, no sidewalks, and a blind curve with a hill. And importantly, we have several families, several children, several people walk their dogs, runners, joggers. I am a mom. I have 2 small children. My neighbors have small children. They attend the local elementary school, middle school, high school. And currently, we wait for the bus stop at the intersection of Jackson and at either Squire or Thorntree, which either requires us to cross the street or regardless stand at an intersection of Jackson, which you've heard is a dangerous curved road with a blind spot. The entrance of the proposed entrance of the development would make that even more dangerous and prone to accidents. What else? Oh, and of course, we live in Rochester, suburb of Rochester. The feet of snow, the rainy days, the ice. Again, the children are standing in the road because there is no other place for them to stand. The area is already vulnerable, as you've heard. Building there is problematic environmentally, logically, in terms of safety and traffic issues. And then I wanted to talk a bit about the quality of life in Penfield. Part of it is being able to be outside, whether it's running, jogging, walking your dog, allowing your children to ride their bikes, be outside. And as a mom, as a parent, I believe I can say as a group, we believe in allowing our children to play outside. And the development makes this less so for our community, for our established neighborhood, for the people of Penfield. Let's see. And then lastly, I think people move to Penfield for this sense of community, for this sense of neighborhood, for this feeling that you get as neighbors, and being able to walk outside, meet your neighbors, talk to them, get to know them with these traffic issues, with these dangers, with the increase in even the building of the development. It stops us from that, and that's part of Penfield and part of why I moved my family to Penfield. That is all.
Thank you. David Mang.
Good evening, David Mang, 20 Autumn Oak Circle. The concerns I have is with the retention pond, and as Ann pointed out, Ann's one of my neighbors, the existing retention pond, at the meeting the other night, Rudy spoke about improving that. And my question would be, how is it going to be improved? Because right now it doesn't work. My house is over here, retention, or the Forever Wild in here. And my basement is about at the same level as the lower end of that Forever Wild, that retention pond. And my guess, I haven't seen any plans from the builder, but you can't get water to flow up. Obviously, that retention pond is going to be in that lower area. Right now, when it rains heavy, as Ann said, that thing fills up completely, the lower portion. So my question is, what I'd like to have an answer from the town is, how is it going to be improved? Because again, right now, it's not working. The other concern I have is with 20 homes going in there, will this improvement to these ponds, because from what Rudy said the other night, it's going to be 2 ponds, one higher, one a little lower. Will it handle the runoff from 20 homes? So I'd like to have that answered also. The other question I have is will those ponds always have water in it? Because right now the way it works, when it rains heavy, fills up, you get some dry weather, it disappears. It's still a little soggy, but there's no standing water. When there is standing water, we get a lot of Canadian geese come in, and I don't know, it could be anywhere from 15 to 30 of them. Well, then what happens is they come walking up onto the road and start, you know, doing their business on the road in the driveway. So if that's going to always be wet, I have a concern about that. Let's see. And my other question would be, when you do this improvement, does it make the pond better, or does it meet New York State standards? That would be my question. And how are we going to know that it's going to make it better? What happens if it doesn't make it better? Right now, my sump pump runs almost 24/7. I have 2 backup sump pumps to pump that out. With 20 more homes coming into that, running into that, I have concerns about keeping my basement dry. What I would like to see is the developer put a retaining pond on their own property and the town improve the existing to help myself and my neighbors with the water problem. I'd also like to have, you know, the planning board maybe go out and take a look at it and see how wet it is right now. And we've had not a lot of snow this year, so there's not a lot of melt off, and it's soaked. So I'd almost like to see, one of the things that might help, they put a retention pond on their own property, cut down the number of homes. I think 20 homes is excessive for that lot size. These 10 here, a lot of homes, I don't know that I'd want to pay $400,000 for a home on top of another home. So one of the ways it might help not only reduce the problem with the water, but would also help with some of the traffic issues is cut down the number of homes. Maybe go down to 15, 12, something like that. And I'd like to see them put their own retention pond in.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Thomas, G-A, is it G-A-U-G-E-R?
Gauger.
Gauger?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. I was the first one you butchered? Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's all right, I've been called many things in my life, let me tell you. Okay, my name is Tom Gauger. I live at 11 Squire Circle, which backs up right to the church. The church is right in my backyard. I've lived at 11 Squire Circle now for, I think, 18 years, something like that. I actually moved here from Walworth. I used to own a horse farm out in Walworth. Still have horses, but they're down the road a little bit. Anyway, so one of the reasons that I enjoy this neighborhood is, and I'm not going to belabor stuff that other people have said, but we do have a very large herd of deer that go through the area, and they go from the swamp, which is back over in here, down through my backyard into this area. People that live off of Thorntree, I'm sure see them all the time. But I have probably, 10 to 12 deer walking through my backyard daily. And the reason that that's of interest to me is because I own a very large Great Dane. My Great Dane sits there, and I have my backyard fenced in with the chicken wire fence. And my Great Dane, who's as big as a deer, sits there and looks at the deer, and the deer look back at him, and they sit there for a good 10, 15 minutes looking at each other and thinking like, well, why are you over there? Why are you over here? But anyway, if the deer are not allowed to come back here anymore, what's going to happen to the deer? Are they going to basically, have to stay up into the park over here? Well, it's not a park, the wooded area that's between Jack's, Baird Road and Atlantic, and some of the housing tracts that are over in this area. But anyway, so the wildlife, and somebody mentioned earlier about fox and stuff like that. I do see fox every once in a while, but more deer than anything else. Okay, so anyway, there's a issue to be had about the wildlife that's in the area and what's going to happen to it. We've already belabored the traffic. The one thing I will tell you, though, that I'm concerned with, somebody mentioned the fact that they're concerned about accidents. I'm more concerned about pedestrian accidents. And here's why. Because if you ever watch over here at the church, and people have mentioned the fact that there are maybe 100 little kids, guess what? They're constantly walking those kids up and down that road, okay? All summer long. So if you add, and by the way, somebody said that they're a traffic engineer. I've done work for the traffic engineer people before, and they can count on probably 1.5 cars per house, with an average of maybe 3 to 4 trips per car per day, okay? So you're adding an extra maybe 100 to 200 cars up and down that road, And if you've got all these little kids walking up and down that road, and especially along, somebody had mentioned the fact that you've got a blind spot over here, you've got a major problem on your hands. And who's going to be responsible if there ever is, let's hope it doesn't happen, but if there is ever a pedestrian accident? And again, that speed limit, somebody mentioned earlier, that the speed limit is 35 miles an hour. That is too fast, first of all. And they go faster, absolutely. And I have walked my Great Dane up and down that road, okay? There's been a couple times when I've had to suddenly yank him out of the way because somebody comes flying around the corner. And you add an extra 100 to 200 cars up and down that road, you are asking for a pedestrian accident. You are asking for somebody to get hurt. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Okay, for the most part, it's a quiet neighborhood. And, obviously, the more people you add in the neighborhood, you're going to change the character of the neighborhood. The neighborhood is going to change. It's not going to be quiet anymore. You're going to have, especially if you had an extra 100, 200 cars up and down that road, it's not going to be a quiet neighborhood anymore. You're going to hear constantly, anybody that's sitting in their front yard of their house is going to hear more and more traffic all the time. It's not going to be a quiet neighborhood. Again, we've talked about the fact there's no sidewalks. We've talked about the fact that it's not a standard width road, first of all. It is big enough for 2 travel lanes. It is, I think they're 11-foot lanes. The standard width traffic lane is 11 feet. The appropriate width for new roads, by the way, is 14 feet. So given the fact that they're 11-foot width lanes, and people have talked about the fact that you have no choice if you're walking up and down that road to walk on the road, there's no place for people to go, okay? So, excuse me. We've also talked here that there are many young families up and down throughout the area, and that there are more young families coming all the time. The people that live across the street from me are selling their house to a new young family. There's a young man that showed up today. Thank you very much for showing up. That's very, got to give him a hand, because that's a very, I'm very proud of him for coming and standing in front of you guys. It's not easy.
Right.
Okay, walking dogs, we talked about the church. What happens, that new church home that's going in there. I don't know what clientele are going in there, but what if there is, disabled individuals going in there, or if there is, autistic people going in there, you add them to pedestrian traffic on that road, again, you're asking for trouble, okay? One thing I would ask is, if a traffic study is done, there should also be a pedestrian study done, given the amount of pedestrian traffic that is on that road. Question for you. The property, back when it was a Christmas tree farm, what was it zoned? Do you know?
Same zoning as it is today.
Okay, did they have a special use permit?
It's a conditionally permitted use, actually it's a permitted use to operate agriculture and residential.
Okay.
So that was an agricultural operation, it was a customary agricultural operation. They would have obtained the permits necessary from the town to do that. Actually, I was just talking to a gentleman who issued the permit himself when who has worked here for a number of years.
Okay, and does the permit just expire, and therefore the property suddenly is available to be?
It doesn't change the underlying zoning of it. Each zoning district in town has a list of permitted and conditionally permitted uses. If you look at our residential zoning district ordinance for single-family homes, obviously, single-family homes are permitted.
agricultural operations are permitted, just like you see out east in Penfield. Those are all zoned residential. They're just different densities. But when this became an operation for a tree farm, it was zoned R120 just as it is today.
Okay.
There was
all
no
right.
change in that.
So you haven't changed that, but...
No, sir.
The permit is obviously expiring.
Well,
Or already has.
the use, the operation has ceased.
Right.
Whatever permit was issued doesn't control that at this point. Again, it stems back to the underlying zoning of that property, just like the rest of the properties in that area.
No, that's fair. Just
Good question.
Okay. Unfortunately, and I'm not going to address them directly, but I have dealt with BME in the past. My mother lived in Fairport, and there was a large property behind her house that got sold, and they went in there and whatnot and put another housing development in there. I can tell you that some of the similar type of issues that were brought up then are being brought up now. I can tell you also the fact that I liked this gentleman here. I don't know your name. I apologize. But we all know that water does not flow uphill, okay? And, you know, I've heard, I live over on this side, so I don't know too much about what happens over here, but Square Circle drops about 10, 15 feet from the level of Jackson Road. So any runoff that happens here that doesn't go this way, well, it's going to go west, and it's going to come flying down Square Circle. So one question I have for you is, in the event that an existing neighbor suddenly develops a problem that it is documentable, who do they go to file a lawsuit against? Do they go against the town? Or are they SOL? Or do they go to BME? Or do they go somebody else?
You guys looking at me? Okay, they're all looking at me. Well, that's a very broad question that you asked there, because it's obviously it all depends on timing. What I can say, and I hope this addresses some questions that have already come up, and I'm glad you guys have put it on record at least. As a sketch plan, and like the chairman said earlier, the final drainage designs for stormwater runoff have not been designed for this project yet. They are, in theory, rough estimates based on the size of the proposed development. Anything moving forward from here would require an engineer's report to study the runoff rates, how that infiltrates the ground, how that's treated before it goes into a storm sewer system. It's also important to note that any project in town that does come through, we have a standard that's higher than the DEC's, where you are required to treat above and beyond the amount of water generated on the property from runoff. You're also certainly not allowed, and we work with our engineers on every project, that no negative impact can occur to a neighbor as a result of a project. So as we're looking at the designs, we look at rear yard swales, we look at rear yard catch basins, we look at where's this water going to go so that it's contained within its site and it goes where it's supposed to go, treated where it's supposed to be treated, and discharged to its eventual discharge point. Unfortunately, those questions can't be answered tonight with all that data because it's not available.
No, understood the fact that you know,
yeah.
This is all preliminary. So.
And just rewinding to your question, in the future, I mean, if I'm a big hypothetical situation here, if a particular homeowner in this proposed development created a water problem that affected another neighbor, usually someone eventually contacts us, but it's typically a private matter. I'm not an attorney, so I'll put that on the record right now. Not an attorney, but I know people just tend to listen to their attorney as to who's involved in a lawsuit. I would say it starts as a private matter is what I would answer your question. Again, broad situation there, but that's the best I got for you.
Both my ex-wives are attorneys. and
Mine's not.
attorneys, so.
Mine's not, and ours isn't here right now. So speaking from experience.
Anyway.
Yep.
Okay. Let me see, traffic study we talked about, road width we talked about, town assessor you talked about. I guess I'm done. Thank you very much, I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, Barry Goldstein.
Hi, my name is Barry Goldstein, and I live at 1900 Jackson Road. I'm right next door to Ben and Sylvia, Benoit. And when I moved into that house 8 years ago, I marveled at the land behind me and to the side. And I told the real estate agent I wanted the house before I even walked into it. And he said, it's forever wild, they can't build on it, there's something with the ground, with the shale or rocks or something. But anyway, that's not my main concern. Well, that is a big concern. But the house that I lived in prior to this, they were doing some construction, and all the animals around had no place to go, so they wound up in our houses. I was inundated, and so were all my neighbors with rodents. You know, they're being evicted, and they're looking for new homes. And, you know, I love animals. I volunteer with animals, and I work with animals all the time, but I just don't want the wild animals in my house. And that could be a health issue as well, so, you know, there are right behind my house, there's a family of groundhogs and raccoons, and they have a right to the land as well as anything else. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Barry, is it Lydic?
Yep. I'll keep it very short. Most of it's been addressed already. Name is Barry Lydic. I live at 1894 Jackson. And I probably have the most to lose on this because my house is only 28 feet from the lot line. Now, this is my house right here. I'm only 28 feet. And you use the term storm runoff. It isn't a storm issue. There's water all the time. And all of this area, I can't speak for the whole lot, but this area right in here is always wet. It's very low. And they're going to have to fill to get those yards to be dry. So that means it's going to back up over here. It's got nowhere else to go. So I just want to make sure that the drainage issues are dealt with before I have problems. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Deborah Lydic.
Thank you for having us here and hearing our questions and concerns. My name is Deborah Lydic. I'm at 1894 Jackson Road. I don't want to talk too much about traffic again, but I do want to say that, I guess my question is, if you lived, let's see, where's the entrance? If you lived plus or minus 3 houses from the entrance of where this is going to be, how would you feel every morning if 40 cars had to come out of there and drive down Jackson? I'm saying 40 because 20 houses, they probably have 2 cars apiece. Every day going to work, every day coming home, every day doing errands. 40, how would you feel? All that traffic coming out of there. Because that's how we feel, that traffic. And I'll tell you, I have 2 little dogs and they love to go on walks. And I am scared to walk on Jackson Road. Every time I see or hear a car, I yank them and I have to step on someone's property because there's no sidewalks, and I stop because with distracted drivers today, you never know. So I stop and I wait for that car to pass. And I'll tell you that 35 per hour speed limit, nobody obeys that. Cars fly down there, and they don't care. They don't care. I yell at them. And I'm not polite when I yell at them. And sometimes they hear me. But, so, yes, and the trucks, the town trucks do not adhere to that 35 mile per hour speed limit. So that's it for traffic. But I do want to say, I'm also concerned for privacy. As Barry said, our house is, 28 feet, the back of our house is 28 feet from the property lot. And we have a very nice deck out the back. And that deck is 11 feet from the property line. Now, where is 11 feet? Let's see. Maybe about here, right? So,
About that.
yeah, so the neighbors are going to be right there. So I'm very concerned about, you call them buffers, I call them barriers. I want to know what is going to be put up to prevent, or to, protect our privacy from people, looking in and seeing us, on our deck, having friends and family over, entertaining 3 seasons out of the year. I'm really concerned about privacy. Not just for me, but for everyone, because we have to have that kind of buffer, that kind of barrier. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's all of the pre-sign-up slips that we have. I'd like to invite other people up. If you have something new to say, that would be great. Let's start with this young lady right here. Come on up.
Hi, Amy Alborough, 1926 Jackson Road. I think my question is regarding the acreage. It was originally noted 13 point whatever, but then on the plans it was like 11 something. Where my property is and my neighbors, there's a portion of property that mentions the owner. I think that's like a buffer or whatever it is. I want to know if that's actually going to happen, or is it in negotiation?
Could you point to the area on the white map behind you? Oh, I'm sorry, don't use that one. So I'm sorry, actually, that's conventional plan. Actually, if you come back to this one and point to that area, I'm sorry.
So it's this here.
Okay, yep, I follow you.
It's this area.
Yep.
So it says convey to, does that mean that it's definitely staying with that property, or?
Well, nothing's definite as a sketch plan. However, the proposal would be to convey that land back to the current property owners.
And what happens if it doesn't? Will there
If it
be
doesn't,
building
then-
on that?
No, if it doesn't and they built this layout, the way a cluster plan works is that land would be dedicated open space. It could either be dedicated to the town, but it would not be used for any future homes because the density has been used up. What was designed as 20 homes on the conventional plan, the white one behind you, and clustered to the 20 here on the colored one, again, as the chairman said earlier, 20 to 20, that doesn't change. It just changes the layout a little bit. So if that land wasn't conveyed back to the current property owners, it would either become dedicated space, can be merged into one of the properties. There are options for that, but it would not be another home, say house 21 or 22. It would still be at 20 homes.
Okay. I'm also going to put on record that I'm also an advocate for, I'm on Jackson, so obviously the same thing with the roads, sidewalks, lighting. No one's talked about lighting tonight. There's absolutely no lighting on Jackson Road. I have 2 children, and I've never taken my kids trick-or-treating on Jackson Road. So I'd like to put that out there too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this gentleman back there, come on up.
Greetings. Jim Balone, 66 Jackson Road Extension. Ostensibly, I don't have a dog in this race. I don't adjoin these properties at all. I'm on the other side of Jackson Road Extension. But I do want to point something out. We've had discussions primarily of 3 issues: water management, traffic management, and to a lesser degree, wildlife management. Speaking to traffic management, I've been to the is it called your traffic board, your
Transportation Committee.
Transportation Committee meeting several times, I requested studies on Jackson Road extension. They did that study the day before Thanksgiving weekend. They did that study without bringing enough power for the unit that sat in my front yard for 5 days. I had to provide my own power. The report came back to me that people on Jackson Road extension travel, big surprise, 45 to 65 miles an hour most of the times of the day in a 35-mile zone. So for you poor people that live on Old Jackson Road, you're really in trouble when the traffic increases. Where I'm going with all this, I have no objection to the construction, 20 homes, 15 homes, 5 homes, no objection to the water management, but all of these issues point out that the town board has not held their end of the bargain since before the 2010 comprehensive plan. There have been no sidewalks in this neighborhood, and I've had to argue with your staff about whether there are sidewalks extant on Jackson Road extension. I have no lighting on the section of road that I live on. I have no leaf pickup, I have nothing. And the town board continues to build without following through on their responsibilities. One of your responsibilities was sidewalks. There's still no sidewalks. There's still no protection for pedestrians. There's still no traffic control. So we've heard pretty much from everybody in this room, I'm playing cleanup here. The town board needs to look long and hard at this, and if you allow this project to go through for the pure purpose of fixing your previous mistakes, using the money, the engineering to fix the water problem, it's going to look very suspicious. That's how I see it. Thank you.
Gentleman from the back, and then you.
My name is Zach Wojciechowski from 1893 Jackson Road. Just one thing, as someone who walks their dog morning and afternoon, just watch the road crumble. They keep oiling and stoning it, whatever that does. But what's it going to look like after we're done running trucks on it, building 20 houses? Every year, the plows just tear it up, and it just keeps getting worse. Running trucks on it with all those deliveries is going to be a problem. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we had somebody, yes, sir.
Name is Tim Nixon, 1907 Jackson Road. A couple things I wanted to point out, just more so that they get on record. First and foremost, looking at the drawing, the proposed exit for that road, first, so everybody knows, I'm actually at the house right across the street. So my driveway is an extension of that road. Where they actually have that road laid out right now is over where the current owner, Ben, has already planted a line of trees. So I know this is a sketch drawing, but that's going to mean that this is actually going to have to go out further north. So I'm curious to see how that's going to actually play out with the setbacks on those houses there. That being said, everybody's been talking about traffic up and down the road. I have 3 kids. They get on the bus every single morning. You're now talking about 40-plus cars coming right at us every morning. Yesterday morning, when we were at the bus stop, our bus, 5 cars. That's at 7 o'clock in the morning. Way too much traffic. Way too much traffic. I won't talk about all the other things, but drainage, and I've actually talked with the town engineers about this many times over the last several years. Because of the fact that the drainage in our property, and if you look at our actual land, it sits down probably about 3 feet from the other side of the road. That is a lake. I mean, we could get a sprinkle, and we have a lake. There is no way you're getting all that water out. And based on what I think I heard tonight, one of the proposals was to bring a pipe to the road. that does me no good. So, the only way you're getting the water out is if you bring in a pumping station. The town said because it's localized water, they wouldn't do it. So we're perpetually living, I know lots of other people have said this too. I have a sump in my house running 24/7, and I have actually a sump in my backyard that's trying to get the water away from the foundation because our basement floods consistently. This is only going to add to that problem. So I would appreciate if you guys can consider either looking at alternative entrances and exits, reducing the volume of housing. Like, we all know that this is going to be an uphill battle, right? I grew up in a house with a facilities manager. My father was on the other side, so I understand how these things go. I just hope that the recommendations and the things we're bringing up truly make it into that sketch letter, and they are addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Greg?
My name's Tom Bodeker, and I live at 70 Thorn Tree Circle. We also have the 70 Bravo Thorn Tree Circle, which is that extra acre that runs right along that property, which is going to be about 412 feet. That runs, I mean, it's directly on the edge. And so, as everybody has stated here, there's a lot of runoff, and from what we understand from the previous owners who lived there when it was built, that they actually did some management of that water flow, building dikes, and they had some stuff that was holding it back, but at this point, it's not working anymore, and it's really filling up. And the concern is if we, if you go ahead and approve this, how are we going to force them to make sure that they are basically developing a runoff system that is going to address that water? Because if it goes any higher, which is going to be generating runoff from those houses that come in there, and it comes right into our backyard, into that acre property. And if it gets any more, it really will start flooding that area, which we don't have sump pumps in those houses right along Jackson, or Thorn Tree Circle. So that is our concern. What is the process for these environmental impact studies? Because I've done them before. And I think the traffic study, when are those going to be done, and when is the approval process? Because we don't want it approved, or they go to a certain point and they haven't done these environmental impact studies, and which would determine that they have to actually put in the proper drainage in order to process that water out, or at least not make it worse. What is our recourse on that? What is the approval process to make sure that that is not dragged along and it's already approved before that is taken into account?
We will be taking all everyone's comments into account. The testimony from the applicant, we will produce a letter to the applicant with comments. If they decide to come back, all those things get addressed before. That's part of the preliminary final application process. So those studies happen before any approval or denial.
I just want to make sure of that. Okay.
Yeah.
There would actually be a second public hearing scheduled for this project. Once that information and plans are available, it's treated as a new application before this board, once they've designed their next level of plans, if the board sees fit.
So if you see fit to do those studies
To
and get
proceed
those accomplished, it has to be done prior to any approval?
Correct.
And then that will take into account when they design that, if they can...
Everything that's been brought up tonight goes into that.
Okay.
Traffic, drainage, environmental impacts, buffers, you name it, it gets addressed during that review process once they've generated final designs.
Okay, and then we'll have a second hearing to review the amount of impact to make sure that they address...
That's correct.
...that with the proper drainage, if that is going to approve that it's not going to make it worse.
That's correct.
Correct. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Would anyone else like to comment? Sure, come on up.
Very quick, will we get the postcard?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, yes.
That process does not change. Postcards are sent out from the town as a courtesy with every application that goes out. Legally, we are required to only post it in the available newspaper. We do have a policy of the town that we have the sign posting posted on the property, as you all saw. It triggered a lot of phone calls, which we're thankful for. That's what it's designed to do, so it's doing its job. If the postcards don't make it, because that is in the hands of the post office, not us.
Check the website.
Check the website when that comes up. Also,
Community television, we want higher ratings, so always watch PCTV.
always important. Thank you for that plug. We appreciate that. Yes, postcards will be sent out again.
Does everybody on Thorntree, Jackson, Squire get a postcard?
The-
Just so
Not necessarily. It's based on a search radius from the center of the parcel. So we have a program that runs that. We'll look into probably widening that search area because we have that ability. But we'll look into that when that time comes.
Okay, we have another gentleman would like to speak.
Dan Scalia, 1895 Jackson Road. You guys spoke of kind of like the town's 10-year plan about coming into all these established neighborhoods and building new homes that really don't fit. Is there any concern about just going around from neighborhood to neighborhood and really upsetting everybody? To eventually you're just going to have a whole community of upset people about what's being built?
I can address that.
Oh, you're just looking at me, so I was going to say
So, our board, the planning board, is tasked with subdivision and site plan approval. We don't make the laws, and we're just responsible for, I guess, enforcement, so to speak.
Makes sense.
And there are, in the United States, personal property rights, and if you buy a piece of land, there are certain things that you can do on that land as long as you fit within the laws of that local municipality and the state and the federal government, right? So if you want to build a deck, or you want to build this or that, as long as you're, not too close to if we have zoning laws, which we do in Penfield, some places don't have zoning laws. But if you want to go closer to your neighbor, say, than is allowed by law, you come before the zoning board of appeals and they determine whether, you can do that. There's always, in a free market economy, the opportunity for a developer to get outbid. So, there's a lot of people here. You could probably pool your money and buy the property. And that's...
Well, don't you feel like, though, you're running a very dangerous operation right now? I mean, you saw what kind of happened with the property off of Whalen, the old golf course. I mean, the community really is not looking for anything like this to happen. And if it does happen, to the other gentleman's point, it needs to be smaller. Now, I'm sure the builder can't make as much money if there's not as many homes. That's why they're so close together, yada, yada, yada. I get it, but I don't think that you're going to be able to continue the spot building like these neighborhoods crunched into, it just doesn't fit and work. So I think that you need to be wary of how many homes go in, and, like they said, $400,000 homes, I mean, it's going to be ridiculous at the end of the day. So just keep that in mind as these keep coming forward over the years, to your point that a lot of it's developed already. Well, either people got to go out further, or you need to start to come up with something different, because it's just, you're going to be in battle after battle with people and just a lot of upset. So I hope that everybody keeps that in mind.
We all live here,
Yeah.
Not exactly next door to you, but in very similar neighborhoods. So it happens everywhere, so we totally
It does
understand.
happen everywhere, that's
Totally
correct. And this is gonna be everywhere now, it's just gonna be a fight for it. But, I think in this particular area, you're really out of line trying to fit this type of development in there. So I hope that the people that look at it every day and walk it and seeing it, you're gonna be hearing a lot of it over the coming years, so keep that in mind.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Would anyone else, do we have any final comments? Yes, sir.
Hi. My name is Mike Amico. I live at 1046 Whalen Road. My father lives next door at 1042. Was very fortunate to build my house 5 years ago. My wife and I, it was a dream we always had. So with that being said, we border the property that's in question here. We have about 400 or 500 feet that we share with that property. Assuming that this is going to go forward, and I never want to deny anybody to build a house that they dream about, but maybe on a smaller scale, a few less houses, we would like to see maybe berm or possibly keeping hedgerows where we do maintain some of the property between the Thorncliffe and our property and other properties as well. So, but that's pretty much it. Just wanted to find out if that was going forward, if we could look at those options.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Come on back up.
This question is Jen Decker from 75 Thorntree. It's not for me. I had a friend who had to leave. She just wanted it on record that a lot of the houses on Jackson that back up somewhat near to that property apparently are still on septic, and they have concerns with, I guess, the flooding and I don't know, just to have that on record, septic.
We're aware of
flooding
this,
problems.
we're
Okay.
aware of septic systems out there.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That was it.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Not yet. Sir, come on up.
Dennis Manning, 1924 Jackson, bordering the development. I would like to know when that piece of property became not Forever Wild, because I lived there since '73, and that 30 acres went for sale for $900 an acre, $28,500, in the late '70s. If I hadn't just bought a car, I would have bought it for like a big piece of farmland, if nothing else. I was told, we were all told at the time, because everybody got a flyer that lived around it, this is Forever Wild. That's why it's being sold dirt cheap for $900 an acre, $28,500. Subsequent to that, Dumais, my neighbor, built a house close to Jackson, Old Jackson Road. He has a leach field, which he said was the only place on the entire 30 acres, according to him, not including Amico's part, because they sold that off, that he could put a house because it's the only place it perked, because it was so wet. Plus, you know, I got bedrock down under my house. Well, my house burned down in '03 to rebuild it. But when I hooked into the sewer that they put in front of my house in '02, it took 100-ton of rock to go 80, to get the 80 feet to the street. At any rate, did this used to be Forever Wild? When did it change? At least the lowland part of it, which is flooding everybody back on Pond Way and stuff.
Yeah, I can tell you the zoning history of the town, that
It was never Forever
nothing.
Wild, so somebody lied when they went to sell the property?
I don't know who sent that flyer. Obviously, I wasn't born in 1970.
The
So
reason it
I
was
don't.
so cheap, I was told it was Forever Wild, according to the town of Penfield.
I can't speak. I don't want to speak for the town during that
I
time.
know, it was 40 years ago.
Many years ago, exactly. But our zoning ordinance goes back past the 80s and the 60s and the 50s. Before the code that we know now for zoning on property, a lot of the town was zoned half-acre residential. If something was marketed as Forever Wild, that comes from a property owner, a realtor. I don't know why the town at that time would have said that. I know the town wasn't the one. It wasn't a listing agent. We are not in the market of realty. So to answer your direct question, the property has always been zoned residential. It has always been permitted for single-family homes. It has been used as a different thing, obviously, in its history, as a tree farm or as undeveloped land, as you saw it when you first moved to the area.
Well, it did become feasible to build there at all until they had sewers on the extension, I mean, on Pond Way.
Yeah, sewers, as I said earlier, sanitary sewers are a very big factor in residential development. It avoids the need for those perk tests for septic systems, as some of the areas still have out there.
Jackson ends at my house.
Yep, so I mean, and if there's capacity in those sewer systems, then if there's capacity, which there is in this system, then this is why we see development take place.
Is the sewer large enough on Pond Way to accept 20 houses
Yes.
worth of stuff?
Yes.
And then it goes out to Jack's Extension, is that? Well, obviously it's Jack's Extension.
It's all downstream, yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else? Yes, sir, come on back up.
I guess this is, excuse me, this is addressed more to the builders, I guess. Do you know what that parcel is selling for, price-wise?
No idea.
No idea?
No idea.
Well, somebody had mentioned, maybe, I think it was you, that we could buy the land, but we don't know what it's selling for. Just a quick question.
It's more of a conceptual, I mean, it is possibly an actual possibility, but.
So there's no public record about the sale?
I don't.
It hasn't sold.
It's a
purchase contract.
I have no idea if it's on the market or if it's a private negotiation or just what, but.
Okay.
If this doesn't go through,
Thank you.
we're gonna walk away.
Okay, anyone else? All right. Thank you all for your comments. Do you folks have anything you want to finish up with? Any final comments?
Yes. Thank you. Just wanted to discuss a little bit more. You know, there was discussions about the drainage, the existing town stormwater areas that are downstream where we will be proposing to add our drainage to. Yes, they're a dry pond, so when we don't have rain, they're dry. They look like grass. They look like a field. But yeah, when we do have rain, they are designed to build up and store a certain amount of water. So that's to be expected with with that type of a system. Those ponds were likely designed prior to the current standards of the DEC. And when we were working with a site like this, not only does our site need to meet all of the requirements, if we can gain any extra water quality, that's always a benefit to the community, which is what we would be looking to do. Storm discharge rates will still need to maintain the rate that this pond discharges flows, not only from our site, but currently as it is today. So that would be included in our design of the site. Lastly, I do have one exhibit which provides a neighborhood exhibit based on the town zoning map. We did have some comments as far as how many homes should go in there and the density of the site. We provide the site, it's basically right in that area there, and we did just select a couple of the immediately adjoining areas. And we just note that basically the adjoining areas, when you take that whole area, including the roadways, divided by the number of lots in that area, you're looking around about 5.5, 5.6 acres per home, per residential area. Our proposal puts us up to 0.65 acres. So basically, we're a less dense development being proposed in this area. So just wanted to bring that up as well.
Can you clarify?
I'm sorry. 0.5 acres, 0.56 acres. So basically, you're around a half-acre lot for this neighborhood, 0.566 for this neighborhood, 0.58.
Okay.
Yep.
If you'd like to comment, we can open it up and come on up to the podium again. Sir?
ludicrous. It's lying. It's this lot right here, for people that...
Can you introduce yourself again?
Dennis Manning, 1924 Jackson Road. An acre is 43,560 square feet. In, not this conventional one, because that's a lie, the cluster one, okay? And the cluster one, the house right about here is 0.26 acres. 0.26 acres with a 2,700 square foot house on it. And Mr. Amico would like a berm or something here to separate, which I agree with. There's about 20 foot of trees here, also the gog wave taken down. If you look at the other side of the map, you see that this piece of land here that's being ceded back to Mr. Dumais is 1.45 acres. The build is actually taking place on 11.81 acres. The parcel's 1326, but they're giving it 145 back to Dumais. This development is on 11.81 acres. Quit telling people it's on 13.26 because it's not. Right now, Mr. Dumais has a 1,000 square foot shed on this 13.26 acres, and he has it fenced in. He had no intention of ever using conventional homes here. Now, somebody pretended to put 2.5 homes in this wedge to get this 20-foot density cluster approved. It's nefarious. Not true, it's a lie. This is right now fenced off by Mr. Dumais. It's been that way. He did it this summer.
Mr. Manning, do you recall the conversation we had this week?
I did. Was it with you?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Well, now they all heard it. Before only you did.
I would just like to recap our conversation based on the acreage numbers you just listed.
All right.
As you and I discussed, the density of this subdivision as proposed on the conventional plan is based on the existing property lines of the 13-acre property. As part of their cluster plan, which the cluster Town Law 278 allows, they are allowed to shift the property lines as proposed on the map here and allow themselves to preserve a portion of land that can be deeded back to that neighbor, to that property owner, that can be preserved as open space on its own parcel. However, they are allowed under town law, which is state law, to come up with a density that's proposed on the conventional plan. That is how all of this started. So the 13 acres is still relevant. They are only proposing to develop on 11 acres of it. That is how those numbers come to be.
Okay. But anyone with an IQ above room temperature understands that if the man never, ever meant to use this part of the parcel, ever, then, but it was used to get the 278 approval from the state. It's a catch-22 all the way. Yes, we are using the whole parcel to use conventional homes here. But if anybody just draws a line right down, you'll see it goes right through 2 houses and part of the third. So maybe it's only good for 18. Conventional. Actually, it'd be good for 17 conventional because this is cut up. The third one's cut up.
Mr. Manning, that'll be for the board to determine then?
Well, now everyone knows.
They know your opinion of the matter, and the board will have to determine that.
Okay, come on up. You do.
The whole thing's recorded, everything's on TV.
Amy Albro, Jackson Road. Again, just clarifying, so are you saying that parcel of land could be going back to the owner or it's open space? Is that what we're getting here?
Yes, it could be either of those situations. It's proposed to be conveyed back to the Dumais, which is the existing home there. If they choose not to accept that piece of land, it could be preserved as open space under a conservation easement as dedicated land to the town, as a special park district.
And
as
can
part of the town.
anything else be done on that land?
It would be deed restricted from any development.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. And with that, we will call this meeting closed. Call this hearing closed. Have a great night. Thank you for your comments. Okay, we should be back on the air. Let's get some information put down for a sketch letter. I took a ton of notes based on what people were saying.
Lori and I have sore hands as well.
That one guy, Dan Scalia, kind of summed up a lot of the concerns, the traffic, the drainage, and the wildlife. I will pass these over to you guys. I think we should suggest that the applicant take a look at traffic. Potential impacts.
And I think I'd like to just state, just because that wasn't brought up during the public hearing, just for the record and anyone who's still watching or will be watching this meeting, road improvements and concerns that were captured from the audience and the public about Jackson Road, Old Jackson Road, if you will, and its condition. That's not something that falls to this board's jurisdiction. That is something that is a local matter with the town board. Same thing with sidewalks in the area, street lights in the area. Those are things to pursue with the town board that doesn't come at that typically does not come at the applicant's expense. If they have to make improvements on the road due to the intersection with their development, those can be done, but that would be localized to that area. Road improvements, we work through our transportation committee, we work through the town board and the engineering department and the highway department to make those capital improvement projects, I've talked too much tonight, when necessary. So I just wanted to get that on record for everyone as we go forward. Sorry.
Good? No, it's fine. Keep going.
Yeah, I don't know if you captured alignment of the
Yes, we have that.
entrance to the existing
Yeah, that's
driveway.
something that I think really has to be addressed.
That's something we started looking at as staff as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I go back and forth on that. Sometimes, to me, it could be perfect.
Well, if there's a way around it, depending where his house is too, do you want all those
Yeah.
houses right into his frame,
Yeah.
Right there.
It just
Or
needs a
into his
closer
garage
look
door.
at that.
Yeah, there's plenty of houses in residential subdivisions that have their driveway on them, facing the corner or whatever.
Either way, he's gonna get swept with headlights, because there's the existing house up there.
Yeah,
Again, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it just needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's look at it. Zach, I've got about 9 or 10 things I kept to tell you who talked about what topics. I'll put it in an email to you, the rest of everyone else.
Perfect,
tomorrow.
thank you.
You won't be able to read my scribbling.
I won't be able to read mine. Thank you, Bill.
All right. Bedrock. And
Something they
those,
would
yeah,
explore.
those things that should certainly be.
Yep, we'd like to know what's gonna happen out there, so we know depth of bedrock, where the basements are gonna be. Obviously, you cannot blast for a basement to get it through anything. If there is any soil issues or conditions down there, we're gonna have to know in their engineer's report how much fill is gonna be necessary for this site. We're gonna have to know how drainage is gonna work. They're gonna need a SWIP report. Going through all this for stormwater prevention and pollution. They got a lot of work to do on the engineering side of this based on a lot of, that will answer a lot of the questions of the public that our engineers will review when assuming this comes back.
Right. Okay.
how's the board feel, and I'll ask it now because we're here, sidewalks internally of this subdivision? Currently, they are not showing any.
No more than one side, maybe not even one side. 20 houses is not a,
20 houses is small. I live in a much larger development. We have no sidewalks, we have no streetlights, and I love it. I don't want streetlights.
Okay, so as I hear that, you're supportive of either
A waiver?
installing one side of sidewalks or through the waiver process, or going through the waiver process for a full waiver, and the applicant make up the cost through the waiver policy. Okay.
yeah, I certainly don't mind them on one side of the street. They definitely don't need to be on two sides. And I'd rather the money go toward putting them on Jackson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where they're needed.
But would you prefer to see them install a sidewalk on their frontage on Jackson? If that was the case of...
Thank you, Mike, yes. On that lot 1.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're also required to do sidewalks
Right.
along Jackson Road
Right.
within their property.
Which they yeah, I would
So if
say
you want...
yes.
Okay.
That does support if it does happen.
I get the fact, I mean, for any, let's call him normal person who walks or drives by a strip of busier road and sees, oh, here's a sidewalk to nowhere. Yes, that is your thought, a sidewalk to nowhere, but
Correct.
there is that future plan that will tie into something someday.
Exactly.
And one of the issues here, and correct me if I'm wrong, there may be half of the people that might even have been in the crowd that would say, oh no, I'm not gonna give you an easement to put a sidewalk across my
Very well
front yard.
potential, yeah.
So all of a sudden, we have a ton of sidewalks that go to nowhere, and it's just a fact of life.
Right.
Mike, could you explain the petition process
So...
for the sidewalks in the area?
Currently, we have, neighborhoods that have gotten together, and I believe it has to be over 75% of the development, the neighborhood has to have signed the petition in order for it to be presented to the town board.
To put
To petition for sidewalks.
And we collect that petition.
Okay.
So if the neighbors were willing to start a petition, we need at least 75% of, all the residents along Jackson Road.
Along that street. So
Old
on Jackson Road, if
Yeah.
they want to get sidewalks there.
Right.
75% of the homes that front on Jackson Road
Right.
need to sign the petition.
Yes, but
It doesn't guarantee that they're getting the sidewalks.
exactly, because currently we already have, first of all, we have a list of sidewalks that we want to do.
But it's a first step for them.
Right, it's a first step. Currently, there's 2 petitions in front of them of other neighborhoods that, are looking to get sidewalks. One, we are currently designing and hoping to start construction this year. The town board has allocated budget money to do the whole street, where we have a limited budget per year, which, would prevent it from
Going a couple homes.
it would be stages if it was
Right.
to go by the yearly budget.
Right.
But now the town board set aside a full budget to do the sidewalk. But now there's another petition out there, and
Behind that one.
yes. So it would get their foot in the door. I don't know
Sure.
if they would get granted or anything, but it's a step
It's the
to,
first step.
you don't know until you ask.
Right.
Thank you. It's not to mean to put you on the spot,
No,
but it was
that's
a
fine.
very popular question.
No, and that's,
Yeah, it would solve a lot of their concerns, seemingly.
That was
Right.
the overarching concern, was the traffic and the safety and
Right.
street traffic on Jackson.
Right. All right, you want to continue, or do you have anything else?
I mean, that's other matters that I heard really fall to the town board's purview. I see this as a standard subdivision. I think, Doug, I'd like to pull up the conventional plan and make sure the board's comfortable with what they've looked at so far. As I stated, and I apologize for the argument I got with the gentleman who I had a phone call with just 2 days ago that everyone got to hear. The conventional plan is based on the acreage that the site is today, the 13 acres that was advertised. As you see on the conventional plan, they have revised it per town comments from their original layout. We sent out a PRC memo, they gave us responses and this map last week in advance of this meeting that have addressed all of our concerns on the conventional plan as staff. I think the only thing that could change this as if they go forward is the determination of the status of the wetland area to the north, and if that driveway is going to be permitted to go through there. Our indications is yes, the driveway would be a minimal enough improvement in there where it would not impact that isolated wetland area. Other than that, it does show a stormwater management plan on the property that's sized for the
That's
development
part of
approximately.
that lot in the lower right corner?
Yep, right where Doug's hovering. That would service the neighborhood if it were not allowed under a conventional plan, excuse me. It's also the same area that I asked in the public hearing, where would a pond go if you could not go onto town land next door to improve that area, so they would be able to facilitate that there under an easement or under a dedicated piece of land in the back of those properties. That's something that they will have to investigate and request of the town board between now and a future application about the status of that pond design. But in terms of units, they all meet the minimum lot size requirements. They meet the minimum lot widths for both corner lots and flag lots. We've looked at all of that.
So even that lower...
Where am I? Lower flag
right
left.
corner.
Yep.
Lower right.
Lower right.
Oh,
Yes.
right, yeah.
That pond would be under easement.
So that's on that lot?
Yeah, on both those lots. Yes, on both those lots. That would be under easement, it's not a
So
separate
you
lot.
think they're buildable lots?
We felt they were. Based on, because they did outline the setbacks on there, the 30-foot, 50-foot, 10-foot. So you tack on the setbacks with the lot pad that exists within that setback distance, you have a usable backyard.
Yep.
And that was one of the comments that we've been putting forth in a lot of these conventional plans lately. So I just wanted to bring this to you to see what your thoughts were on the conventional plan before going forward. I mean, this is kind of this is the first thing you have to accept before
Right.
going anywhere.
Yeah, we have to say that's an approvable.
Yeah. If there were any showstoppers on here, they'd have to address it now before going forward.
I don't really see any showstoppers.
That's how we felt.
I mean, I wouldn't buy that lot, but
Well, no.
The flag one at the bottom?
No, and that's why staff is also supportive of locating the pond on the neighboring property that is town-owned land to improve that area for the entire area, not just this project, but also the surrounding area.
Well,
We're not going to fix every sump pump and basement, but you know, if we can improve an area and its surroundings, we'd like to do that with new development. Which is kind of what your point was, AJ, during the meeting about drainage. We don't want to make it worse, we like to take the opportunity to make it better.
Right.
What bordering properties are on septic?
To the southeast, southwest, leading towards the intersection of Jackson and Wayland.
Okay.
It's a anomaly in sanitary sewers, why they're not there. They've continued to function, and I don't know of when any are
North
planned to
of the
go in.
project on Jackson, they're on sewers.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Any other comments from?
Any thoughts on buffers or tree lines at this point? I mean, they're showing kind of on their cluster plan, if we could go back to that, Doug.
Well, if they're gonna relocate some of the Christmas trees, from some of the evergreens that are on the site, you know, I guess, you know, maybe we get
Could do a tree inventory.
Bruce involved or something to take a look, because everybody knows my view on
You like to preserve what you can.
Well, yes, I like to preserve trees, but in terms of buffering, I'm most responsible for creating buffering on my property. I bought trees for my lot. My neighbors benefited, but I put the trees up, and I put the arborvitae up. And everybody's welcome to do that, to give themselves privacy.
We share that opinion as well.
So,
Not an opinion, a fact of the world.
you know, nobody likes to hear that, because everybody wants the other guy to take care of them. But it is what it is.
Also,
And if
keep
we
in-
can, but that said, if we can make people happy, I'm all for that too.
But also keep in mind, they're also required to meet the street tree or the 2 lots, or 2 trees per lot policy.
Right.
Street
So,
tree policy, and
we
I
could
think-
use that rather than in the front, maybe we...
Yeah, but that was another thing that, you know, the street tree policy, that was something that I pushed for years and years ago, because I love seeing mature tree line neighborhoods. You know, my neighborhood doesn't have that.
Right.
And it should today.
They would've
But it
grown up,
was, yeah, I mean, they'd be great. And half my neighbors, you know, it's, geez, okay, I can barely afford the house, I can't afford trees. You know, so you had that whole era of
Yeah.
house poor, nobody has furniture, no
Empty.
landscaping.
Empty front yards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it, I don't think it looks great. That's why I love the street tree policy.
And lately, we've been just putting that on the property owner's side of the right-of-way.
Right.
Obviously, we don't have a tree crew to go maintain those, and
Right.
it becomes who does what, but it has, I think it continues to work, so long as you got a plan that puts it forward. So, I mean, if they're able to transplant some of the trees, preserve them during construction, you know, with ball them up, burlap them up, keep them healthy while construction's going on, and find a way to appropriately reuse them on the site and replant them, I think it's a great solution that we haven't seen for a project in a long
Right.
time.
Right.
What's the rear setback for a deck?
10? No, those the decks, you're talking a rear setback? It has to comply with the 30-foot
Okay.
setback of,
Because there was that one property, he said his deck was 11 foot from the line.
they could have gotten an area variance
there.
from it.
Yeah, they could have gotten
Yeah, that house is really close. Why is it set so far back?
yeah, that's
probably
so
your
far back.
Previous
Because it wouldn't
subdivisions,
privacy.
Can't go up.
that could have been a 10-foot setback at the time.
They would probably told them it's forever line. No, they put a back.
It was built in 1989. Really? Look at that.
Yeah, I don't know the, do not know.
Okay. I thought it was 30, so
I was-
either a variance or something,
I'm sure there's history on that one. Or not.
or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Just Doug, let's zoom out, please.
Wow. Okay, anything else? Terry?
Good.
Bob?
Good to go.
We'll also take a look at the questions. We'll provide you with a copy of the questions and the petition that was provided, as requested by them. Town staff will take a look at answering what questions are possible at this time on those 35, I think they said. So we'll take a look at that on behalf of the board.
Great.
I imagine they're all technical or zoning questions for us anyways. So we'll take a look at that between now and when we can. There's kind of a comp plan going on right now amongst other things that we have. But we'll take a look at that and provide you guys with a copy of it so you can at least review it in advance of what may come.
Okay. Great.
Hearing that, and no other concerns, vote for a sketch
Somebody
letter.
move for a letter?
Make a motion to send a letter?
Second.
Hetzke.
Aye.
Bastian.
Aye.
Canower.
Aye.
Heidi.
Aye. All right.
Thank you all. That's all we have.
Thanks, everybody. We will adjourn and see you all in a couple weeks.
We